Hello everybody, it's Michael Hollands for Sound of the Movies. Today I have the pleasure to once again be joined by the great Mark Mancina. For almost 30 years, Mark has been one of the most interesting and best composers working in this industry. Some of his credits include Speed, Bad Boys, Con Air, Assassins, Twister, Training Day, Disney's Tarzan, Domestic Disturbance, The Haunted Mansion, Money Train, Return to Paradise, August Rush, Shooter, Brother Bear, Planes, Moana, and many more. On today's episode, we will also discuss his latest score, Cry Macho, the 40th film directed by Clint Eastwood. It is my great pleasure to welcome again Mark Mancina.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Well, I am doing good. We're working on a picture right now, and we just got new picture, which we get at the last minute, of course. And so it's always an interesting time. Thank you.
Yeah, I bet it is. And thanks again for joining me today. I really
Sure.
appreciate that, despite your busy and hectic schedule. And Mark, I know we did talk about director Richard Donner actually when we first spoke several years ago, but as Mr. Donner passed away a couple of months ago, I'd like to briefly talk about him again, as you had scored Assassins back in, I think, 1995. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, a long time ago. And I think it was a last minute replacement score, and I think you just had a couple of weeks to score the film. Maybe we could just talk about Richard Donner again and your thoughts on this legendary director and your collaboration with him on this great 90s action thriller.
Well, he was nothing but a really, really nice guy. Um, Very respectful. Really liked music a lot. Really liked what music can do. Um, we just had, it was a precarious situation because my first big break for movies was Speed, and that movie kind of came down in kind of a weird way because Michael Kamen was already signed to do the movie, and when I was hired by the director to do Jan de Bont to do Speed, so I felt really odd about having to take the job when Michael Kamen was supposed to do it, and I'm a big fan of Michael Kamen. So it was kind of awkward for me, but it was a break for me to do something, and so I was really excited about it. Well, Richard Donner called me and asked me if I would replace Michael Kamen on Assassins. And the first thing I said to him was, you know what, I need to call Michael Kamen because I don't know him, and I feel like this is really not right. And he goes, well, I'm not, he goes, I'm not replacing him because Michael's not doing a good job. I'm replacing him because he's too busy. He's so busy. And, he's just not really being able to focus on this. He's written one little thing for it, and it just isn't coming together. So I said, well, let me call Michael because I just feel bad about this. So I called Michael, and he couldn't have been nicer and more of a gentleman. And I just told him, I said, this is the second time this has happened, and I don't want you to think that I think that your composing is suffering. It's because you're so busy, and it's a break for me. I've never worked with Richard Donner, and I had such a short amount of time. I honestly think I had about 3 weeks, so it was kind of ridiculous. But I started off with writing the opening, which Michael Kamen had written a song at the Day of the Dead, kind of a little song with a little girl's voice singing, which was really haunting. And so I kind of took that and then wrote kind of around that as sort of my opening for the movie. And Richard liked that. Richard Donner liked that a lot. So that sort of was kind of like the setting for the score.
Yes, great. And I think considering the circumstances, I think you did a very good job. And I think John Van Tongeren also helped you on this picture,
Yes,
right? Right.
he
Yeah,
sure did. Yep.
Yeah, and I think Assassins. I mean, it's not a Richard Donner classic. Too many people mention, but to me, it's always been a special movie. I like the storytelling of the film and just the whole way the film has been directed and presented and cut. It's just a very well put together film and one of the best films starring Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, I think, and I don't remember. It's been a long time, but I think that there was a lot of clashes with Stallone and Donner. I'm not sure. I mean, it's always hard when you're working with an actor that's kind of that famous and has also sort of, written his own script and all that kind of stuff. It must be difficult for someone like Richard Donner to then, do a kind of a more straight ahead movie with that actor and not have that actor give him tons of input. So I think it might have been a rocky road. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And thank you, Mark, for elaborating on that. And there's another director who's always been one of my personal favorites, and we just briefly talked about him a long time ago. It's Tony Scott, actually,
Huh.
who also passed away. I think 8 years ago already, or
Yeah,
8
yeah,
years. And you worked on True Romance. I mean, Hans Zimmer
yeah.
was hired. He had the main credits. I think you helped out. You worked on it. I think John Van Tongeren also had some
Right.
additional music credit. So, what are your memories of Tony Scott and True Romance? One of the best action pictures of the '90s.
Well, I found Tony personally. I found Tony to be extremely difficult. He was eccentric, which was kind of fun, and he was kind of funny, which was also fun. He was really difficult when it came to music, as far as I was concerned. It might have been how we got along. I don't really know. I know John had a hard time too. Um, just it kind of seemed like no matter what you wrote, it wasn't right for Tony, no matter what it was. And even when you got something that you think he liked, you're never really sure. Um, it was kind of weird, and there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of reworking cues, and it was, I don't know. I didn't get into a good rhythm with him. I didn't um, I didn't ever feel like I knew how to get him stuff that he'd like.
I think Hans at some points may have felt the same way. And I even recall Hans during his tour telling the audience that Tony had actually spent most of the budget, also the music's budget, on the special effects of the film. So there was apparently not that much money left.
It's a difficult thing because if you care about what you do musically, if you're and if you're really good musically, it's pretty hard to not care what happens to your music. So when somebody is chopping up scenes after making you redo music many times, and only to find out that they just chopped the entire scene up, and all of that stuff didn't matter. Nothing mattered at that point that you did. It's hard to deal with that.
Lots of stress, lots of input, crazy schedules. So the risk of burning out is relatively high, just depending on the circumstances and of course how you are wired as a person and how experienced you are as a composer or filmmaker. So it's a tough business, needless to say.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, I've never gotten used to it ever. I mean, I've done a zillion films and I'm still not used to, like today when they sent me the picture that they said was locked and they've unlocked it and put some cuts in it. It's kind of, you kind of just go ask yourself, well, where did this come from? I mean, we've been over this so many times and you've been so specific about everything, and now all of a sudden the scene is just chopped up. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
um but that's the gig. It's funny. I've realized, like on this picture, I really like this picture a lot that I'm on right now, and I like the people I'm working with a lot. But there's just a certain amount. There's a certain part of film scoring that I really love, And there's a certain part of film scoring that I really don't love. And I think that's just the way it is. It's kind of like life, there's good days and there's bad days, right? It's just kind of the way it is when you're scoring a film.
Yes, yes. Basically, you have to take the good with the bad and just chip away and hope and pray that you will make it across the finish line, so to
That's
speak.
that's pretty much. And I think it's the same thing for the editor. I think it's the same thing for the director. I think it's the same thing for sound people. It's making a movie is hard work and difficult work, uh, and I can't for the life of me understand doing 3 pictures, 4 pictures a year. I don't guys that do that. I mean, obviously they have other guys, and I don't have other guys, so I can't relate to that kind of stress level of having that many different things going on. We have some stuff. Marlon Espina, who works here at my studio, is starting to score pictures on his own. And so I'm sort of looking at next year, and I'm thinking, well, this movie's not going to really be done till February. And I think Marlon's probably going to be starting his movie around then. And so, I don't really know that I want to. I mean, I have something that I'm supposed to be doing next, but I don't really know whether I'm going to or not. I'm not sure at this point.
I can totally understand your feelings about that. And I think if you're scoring 3, 4, even 5 or 6 pictures a year, I mean, chances are that you will either start to repeat yourself, or at some point you can see the forest for the trees.
Yeah, I'll tell you what the problem is. And I think the woman that did the Joker.
Hildur, yes.
Yeah, I think she would cop to this as well, because I've been in the same position. You have a hit, and they offer you crazy money to do the next movie, and it's so ridiculous from where you've been as a musician that when they offer you that kind of money, you just go, well, wait a minute. If I do this, I can really afford to be a little bit more independent, and I can afford, better things and maybe better equipment and a better life. So you take it, and then they offer you really crazy money, and you go, well, wait a minute, I can't do both. But then you think about it, you think, well, I guess I could do both if I got some help and I got someone to kind of help out, and all of a sudden you're putting yourself in this position of a completely different job, which is managing the situation and making as much money as you can. And all of a sudden the idea of music and writing and being a composer and writing something that you really truly believe in kind of goes out the window, because it kind of has to go out the window, and I've been in that place. I mean, Assassins was a perfect example of that. They offered me really good money to do that movie, but I only had 3 weeks to do it. I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. I was younger and I needed the money, and also when the iron is hot, that's the other thing in this business. You're hot for a little while, and then most people aren't anymore. There are composers, I think about them every once in a while. I think about certain composers that were really happening, and I don't even know where they are anymore. And that's just the way the business is. I kind of, at a certain point, I went the other direction. At a certain place, I said, first of all, I don't want to do another action movie for a long time. And I want to work on stuff that, like one film over a couple of years. I'd rather do that, like a film like Moana. I'd rather do that and really put a stamp on something than take 3 movies while I'm doing Moana and have a bunch of other composers running around my studio.
Totally makes sense. And thank you very much for elaborating on that, Mark. And now I'd like to talk about Clint Eastwood, Cry Macho, and also Clint Eastwood's legacy as an actor and also, of course, as a director. Because as I mentioned in my introduction, Cry Macho is his 40th directorial effort. That's a huge achievement. And he's got a lot to show for. He had his big break in the 1960s also because of Sergio Leone and the spaghetti westerns, Fistful of Dollars, A Fistful of Dollars More, and also The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Then he started to direct films. Play Misty for Me was his first. Then the second, High Plains Drifter. Do you have a favorite Clint Eastwood film, either a film which he directed or starred, or both?
I mean, The Unforgiven is probably my favorite. Gran Torino's probably, those two are probably tied. But I love those old kick-ass movies with him. When he's a cop and all that stuff. I like those kind of macho '70s movies that he did. Um, but I really like Gran Torino. I think that was so well acted, and there was so many good things about that movie. And The Unforgiven, I mean, it's just a terrific film.
Yes.
Probably his best directing. I think he knows so much about how to shoot a Western. I mean, I so would love him to direct another Western. I know everybody wants him to direct another Western, but he just knows that genre so well.
Of course, I'm glad that westerns are still being produced. Of course, there are not too many
Yeah.
these days, and for a certain period of time, I think studios even avoided westerns. Like the plague. They thought they couldn't make any money off of it or whatever. You know how the industry goes. But of course, The Unforgiven is, as you said, one of his best films, and a great cast: Eastwood, Gene
Oh,
Hackman, Morgan
yeah.
Freeman.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And I know, Mark, that you actually worked on one of his films beforehand, Invictus. You, correct me if I'm wrong, but you produced the song called Colorblind, right?
Colorblind. Yeah. So, I've known Clint for quite a while, but the reason I did that wasn't really Clint. It was more to do with his wife at the time, Dina. I knew Dina, and I knew she had this group of guys from South Africa that were a cappella singers, and I was doing some work with them. I was trying to help them a little bit and recording them, and they were very talented guys, and that song kind of came up, and so I knew I could produce it. I knew I could put together a really good version of it for the film, but I really didn't. I really didn't work with Clint on it. He came over to my place at the time and heard it, and he liked it, but we didn't really work on it. And we've never really worked together until Cry Macho.
As I understand, this film was actually a long way in the making. I think the script had been around for several decades, as a matter of fact, and then finally it got made, and thank God. And because I think it's a lovely movie, and of course it's not action oriented. Of course, you
Right.
don't have high speed chases, and of course fans of films such as Transformers may be disappointed because you don't get to see a billion buildings blow up. So, but I think that's one of Clint Eastwood's strengths, to direct a film which is kind of a quote unquote slow burn, and he focuses on the characters and the story. And I think that's right up his alley. And how did he communicate with you music wise? I mean, did you have any or many, let's say, really deep discussions about musical styles and approaches? What went on there?
Well, well, first of all, I've watched Clint like most people for so many years. He's an icon. He'd be the last person in the room to say he's an icon, but he's an icon. Um, there's just not too many people. I mean, quite honestly, I think Bradley Cooper, I think Brad Pitt, I think these guys want to be Clint Eastwood. I think they want to be a director, a star. They want to be all those things. And I think partially due to Clint's success and the respect they have for Clint. And obviously Bradley and Brad have done great things. And so, I mean, it's kind of cool because I really know Clint really well. And so I sort of know the real guy, you know, and the guy who's influenced so many people. So, you know, the challenge of forget all of that and go over to Clint's house. He wants to show you a rough cut of the movie. And I looked at it, and he doesn't put temp music in usually. There's no music. So it's kind of like put music where you think music should go. And he had a song cut in for the opening. He had a Merle Haggard track that was really good, you know. And he kind of looked at me, and after I saw the movie, he goes, you wanna beat that song, don't you? And I said, well, I'd like to try. I don't know if I can, because first it's Merle Haggard, and I don't think that guy, you know, that voice is so amazing, and I don't really write that kind of music, so I don't know. But the songwriting part of me would love a crack at it, you know. And so he goes, well, it's going to be kind of tough because the editing room loves this song. So, you know, and Clint does too. He goes, but, you know, give it a go. What the heck? So I wrote a really good song, and I felt like it was really good. And the advantage I had, of course, was I wrote it about the film, and I wrote it about the two main characters. Obviously, Merle's song wasn't about the film. So that was one advantage I had. I wrote really good lyric for it. I came up with a really good title, which is Find a New Home. It's never too late to find a new home is the whole title, but which is basically the story of the two main characters. So I knew that really was going to work really well. The biggest problem was the sound, finding a singer, getting the track right, and then finding a singer. And Marlon, who works here at the studio, is from Texas and started auditioning people. And when we came up with Will Bannister, who was the guy that did the finished track, the voice was married to the lyrics. It just worked. And when I heard it, I was like, if Clint doesn't like this, I'm going to be really surprised. Well, he came over and he loved it. He had heard the song, but he wasn't convinced. But when he heard the singer with the lyric, he loved it. And so it sort of went from there to, you know, Clint playing the piano, coming up with ideas here and there. I'd kind of write them down and then kind of rework some of them, and then me writing from scratch ideas. And Marlon played a lot of guitar on the score and came up with great ideas. And it was a very kind of organic process. Everything was played live. It was really cool to do something, you know, on that kind of a scale where it's a much more, I don't know what the word is, organic, natural,
Yes,
scaled down, whatever you want to call it, simple. But it worked, and I think it really complemented the movie, and it sort of kind of kept going because I kept seeing scenes, and I went, well, this needs to have music. This needs music, you know. So I'll write something, and I'd write it, and Clint would come over, and I'd play it for him. Every once in a while, he'd say, it just doesn't feel like this movie, but most of the time, he really liked it, and you know, we'd make some changes here and there, or he'd have some suggestions or whatever. But he's a music guy, so he likes music. So it was fun for him. It wasn't like, you know, oh no, I got to go deal with music. You know, many directors I've worked with, it's almost a curse that they have to put music in their movie. There's this feeling like they need it and they want it, but it's kind of a headache for them. You know, he's the opposite. He loves it. He never really wanted to leave the studio. He'd come over all the time. He still comes over all the time now, you know. So.
Great. I think it's a blessing to be able to work with a director who appreciates music. And needless to say, a film needs music. I don't get it when there's directors, like you just said, they feel like it's a curse to deal with music and music production. I mean, don't they want to have somebody, or don't they want to work with somebody that
you know what it is, Michael? It's that those directors that we're talking about, they don't understand music. So music is kind of threatening because they do understand cinematography, and they do understand color, and they do understand sound effects and dialogue. They understand all that stuff, and looping. All that stuff makes total sense to them. But music is this weird thing. that they can't talk about the oboe solo because they don't know what an oboe is. They're not sure what an oboe is. So there's that level of director that knows enough about music to make them really difficult, or they're very respectful and they're great, or music to them is like a completely different language and they want to feel a certain way, but they don't even know how to explain it to you.
Sounds very true and plausible, and I think music is an aspect of the filmmaking process which they cannot necessarily control. To me, it's enhancing a film, finding a common ground, the characters, how it all comes together. So that's so essential. It's to me that goes without saying, but that's me.
Well, yeah, and I think that everybody, I think that those kind of directors would agree with you. I just think that, like you said, a director by nature is a control freak. I mean, why would you want to direct a movie if you don't like to control everything?
Yeah.
But it's really hard to control music, because if you're not liking the music, or you're not feeling what you want to feel, you don't know how to get there. All you can do is tell your composer, try to explain it, but it's frustrating, Whereas for a camera angle, he can just go up to the cameraman and tell him, what to do or what he wants, and it's done. So I think it's probably frustrating at times.
Mark, we talked about Will Bannister, and I think he was really a perfect choice. His voice is really extraordinary, and I think you did a really good job coming up with a song that fits this film. And of course, it's more interesting if you get the chance to really write lyrics that fit the characters and fit the movie, as opposed to just licensing a song which is not necessarily connected to the story and the characters portrayed on screen.
Well, the thing about it is that Clint wanted to beat the song, and he wanted an original song, and he didn't want to license a song, but he has to love the song, because one thing about Clint is he can't be phony. He has not a bone in his body that can kind of go along with something, even though he doesn't really care for it. Like if Mick Jagger would have come in and written a song, and the studio would say, "But it's Mick Jagger, Clint. You have to do it. It's Mick Jagger." Clint would not be able to do it, and he wouldn't care. So I knew that when he loved the song, that he truly loved the song. I knew it, and I knew that if Clint loves something, it's going to happen. No one's going to tell him anything. He's probably the only director in the world that can basically say to the studio, "This is what I'm doing. I don't care what you have to say." Right? I mean, no one else can do that.
Very few, I think, would be able to, or would have the clout to do that. Yes, if anybody, maybe Spielberg.
Right. Could be Spielberg. That could be. But I mean, I think there's a respect level for Clint. I mean, the thing about Spielberg is he's not an actor. So, that multi-dimensional thing that Clint has is really hard to argue with it, and the amount of experience that he has and the amount of success that he's had. It's a pretty hard one to say, well, I think I know better, Clint, So, with music, I knew that, sort of not arguing, but disagreeing with him musically, saying something is really good that he doesn't feel is good, he's just not going to change it's just the way he's made. So there were a few cues that he ended up with something that I didn't particularly care for. But again, it's his movie. It's Clint Eastwood. It's not a first-time director. So I just felt like, what? Yeah. It's his movie, man. He makes the decisions.
Yeah. It's not an up-and-coming director, so
no, he's not. So
yes, but it's interesting to to hear these stories, and a director who can actually say or go up to a studio executive or to anybody and say, well, this is what we are going to do. You can voice your concerns, but basically I won't care, and it's my movie, it's my vision, and just leave me alone. I think that's extraordinary, and many young directors couldn't even. I mean, if anybody even dreamt of saying anything like that, it would be
Yeah.
okay, sport,
Yeah.
you're out of here.
Yep. Absolutely. But there is only one Clint Eastwood in the world. So I mean, he's earned the distinction. And let's face it, I mean, some of his movies, including this one, don't make very much money. Some of his movies make a ton of money, but none of his movies cost a fortune. He just doesn't. He just isn't one of those guys that spends $200 million making a picture that makes $300 million. He just doesn't. He's gonna spend 50 million, probably max, and that's what every movie. Gran Torino, which made I think 400 million, 500 million. I mean, he has a way of working, and he thinks that, because he's seen me working on other pictures, and he's asked me, what do you mean? Why would they lock the film 2 weeks before you're recording orchestra? Why would they wait that long to lock their picture? It's crazy. I go, well, that's the way they make films. I mean, you're different. For the most part, Clint's pretty locked pretty early on. I mean, he might do some trims and this and that, but he doesn't take, the whole film isn't like being turned upside down all the time. He just doesn't work that way.
Of course, his films also hold a special place in my heart. I mean, there are so many of them. I mean, Mystic River is one of my personal favorites, or Perfect World, and so many others. Yeah, and he has a certain style, a filmmaking style, which I really care for. And of course, there is an audience out there which probably won't. There's also a flip side to the coin, and Clint's films certainly attract an audience still. I mean, he's 91 years old.
Right.
He is still directing films. He's playing the lead. So, I mean, that's an amazing achievement.
Yeah. And I have to say that I think it's his last movie as far as him acting in it. I don't think the guy's ever going to quit until he's 6 feet under. He's not made that way. But I think for him, I think it was hard to act and direct at his age. It's not easy. And I think he did it and everything. I think he felt, that's just my own feeling. He's never said that to me, but I just kind of get the impression he wanted to play that role. But I think at this point in his life, he really feels like, he'd rather get a really good script and do a film than look for himself for a role. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I'm pretty sure that's accurate. So I'm actually going to have dinner with him tonight. So,
great.
But, he won't, like if I were to ask him, hey, what are you working on there, Clint? He's not going to say anything, he's just going to go, I'm just reading, that's what he always says. I'm just reading, which basically means I think that he's reading scripts and reading stuff and looking for something next, but I'm just really pleased. I mean, listen, I'm so fortunate, the people that I've worked with and the success that I've had in my own career. I'm very, very, very fortunate. But I think one of my biggest blessings is just not working with Clint, but being a good buddy of his and getting to know him on a completely different level than most people know him. And it's because of COVID, because we live in the same town. So I've been here for many years, and we have dinner once in a while and stuff. But over the last year and a half or so, 2 years, I've really gotten to know him personally. And I've learned so much from the guy. I have so much respect for the guy. There's so much that we can learn from Clint Eastwood. One of them is to keep going in life, to kind of not get into that easy chair and hang out and, sit on the porch and in the rocker. He's never going to do that. He's just never going to do that. He's one of those guys that if I play golf with him, we just laugh the entire time, because we just make fun of each other and we make fun of ourselves. And I'll tell him, he'll hit a ball up on the hillside and I'll say, don't climb up there, Clint. Come on, man. I mean, it's you and me playing. We don't care. We really don't care. But if you say don't climb up that hill, the next thing you look up that hill and he's up there on a cliff trying to hit the ball. And, any other 91-year-old person would not even be able to get up that cliff, let alone try to hit a golf ball where you could fall. I mean, when you golf, you can really lose your balance, especially when you're on a kind of a cliff kind of thing. But he didn't care. And I've seen him do it so many times now that I never say to him, don't go on the top of, don't go up that at the edge of that sand trap that's 15 feet deep that you could fall back easily and fall into that thing and break something. He just won't, I know he won't listen. So I just let him do his thing. I think that's what the studios have to do with him too. Let him do his thing.
Great. And thank you very much for sharing these stories. And there's actually, I found an interesting quote, and I paraphrased it just a little. The meaning and beauty of Cry Macho do not necessarily lie within the story or how it's told, but rather in the unseen, which is actually an interesting point of view. Also, music-wise, scoring the film and its underlying emotion and significance.
Interesting. Well, I mean, first of all, you said it. It's a slow burn movie, so it doesn't move at the pace that so many people want to move, and that's okay because Clint doesn't give a crap about that. So it moves at his pace that he wants it. That's where he wants it. So the music needed to kind of do the same thing. I certainly didn't want to try to put, some kind of modernistic, weird kind of quirky flair into the film, because that's not what the film is. The film is a sweet story and about a very, very young man finding a new home and a very old man finding a new home. And, that's a kind of a simple arc, but that's what the story is. So the music needed to be along those lines. The music needed to be simple. It needed to be real. No MIDI. It needed to not get in the way, but make you feel a little bit more than you would if there weren't music there. But, Clint is not a sentimental guy. So, he doesn't want gushing music, and he doesn't care for that kind of thing. He doesn't like to be pushed, right? So he doesn't want the music to push. So, the music is sparse, but I think it's cool. And the other thing I think is that he's done the music so much to his films. This gave me a chance to do something a little bit different. I mean, you still have Clint playing the piano. You still have that piano stuff that he always does in his movies. I tried to not do that, but that's what he's comfortable with. But that's him doing that, But my stuff is all guitar. And it was fun to put that color into a Clint Eastwood movie. I don't think there's a lot of Clint Eastwood movies that have that color in them.
Yes. Yes.
And I played some classical, some nylon string, and he liked that a lot. And we had a pedal steel guitarist who played on the score, Greg Leese, who's an amazing pedal steel guitarist, and Clint loved that. So it was fun. It was fun.
The title song, Find a New Home, could be interpreted as his mission to bring the kids home, and also to find peace and to bring closure to a part of his life also.
Well, so that is completely right. And that was my original thought for the title. But the other side of that song, which is the second verse, which is this feeling, and I don't know if it's in Europe as well, probably is, but certainly in America, a lot of people are thinking about moving or not having to be in the heart of the cities anymore. Um, and it's a strange time in America, uh, mainly because of COVID, but also because we've seen, such a rise in crime and in the very populated areas, and a lot of my friends that I've known for many many years are moving, and don't really want to be in necessarily in LA or Seattle or New York City necessarily. They're realizing that they can be sort of on the outskirts and still communicate and do what they do due to technology, um, which is what I did 15 years ago, 16 years ago. I mean, I just didn't want to live. I mean, I was born in Santa Monica. I worked in LA forever, and I just didn't want to be in LA anymore. Um, and so I took a real chance, sort of moving to kind of nowhere as far as Hollywood's concerned. Um, but it's what I wanted to do with my life and with my daughter and with my wife, and so I could really relate to that side of the song as well. That See, I wrote a song called "He Lives in You" that's in the Lion King musical, and that song, you know, it's a universal thought. When I saw the movie the very first time in 1992, when I was working on it, 1991 when I started working on it, um, I had that idea because I saw that scene where Simba looks into the reflecting pool and he says, "That's not my father, that's my reflection." And she goes, "No, look deeper, right? Look harder, look deeper." So that scene still gives me chills. And I lost my dad and I lost my mom actually when I was working on Clint's movie. And the idea that you pass on things to your loved ones, to your friends, to your children, to that you pass a piece of you on to them, that they then pass on to their next generation or their young friends or their kids. It's so powerful. For me, He Lives in You is my greatest achievement. So I really, with this song, wanted to find a new home. I wanted to have something that's a universal idea, not something that just fits Clint or his movie, but something that fits Clint and his character and him and the young boy in the movie, but also fits a lot of people, that a lot of people can relate to.
I think people are trying to get away from the cities. First of all, because it's very expensive to live in.
And expensive, yes, absolutely.
Very expensive. And I think people are trying to kind of escape the stressful city life because they may feel that life is stressful enough and that you have a billion things to deal with. And of course, technology didn't really help to a certain extent because nowadays you are basically so many things are being shoved down your throat via social media.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to escape, and I think people are just trying to find a valve of some sort. And I mean, I also live in the burbs, in the suburbs, so to speak, and I also enjoy the city life, but also to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And because I don't want that, hectic environment in my life, because
Yeah.
life can
Sure.
be tricky and stressful enough as it is.
There's also, with COVID, I think a lot of people realized they needed to figure out a different way to continue working. And for me, when I started a TV series called Criminal Minds.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even tell you when that was. It's got to be 15 years ago, I would think.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Okay, so when I started that, I bought a sort of a video system, that I've been checking things out, and I've been looking at these things, and I found a system with a camera and a video that allowed me to teleconference from anywhere with really clear picture, way clearer than Zoom or anything else that is nowadays. This is a long time ago. So I installed it in my studio. I installed my friend Dave Metzger, who did orchestrations for me. He installed one in his studio. And then we had a rover that I could send down to LA and people could work with me with that. Or in Santa Monica, they wouldn't have to drive across town. If they were from Disney, for instance, they wouldn't have to drive all the way across town to get together with me. But the problem is that so many producers, directors just didn't want to do it. And they would say, no, you need to come down for this. You need to be here for this really important meeting. And I'd go there and we'd talk about music for about a minute. And then the rest of the meeting was phone calls and all sorts of just sitting around, wasting time. What's funny now is that now everybody wants to work remotely. I'm working on this movie. I've been working on it a year. I've never physically met the people I'm working with. It's all been, Zoom or over the internet meetings, communications, because of the way things are with COVID and everything. That's just the way things have become. But I think it's taught people that getting on a plane and flying to be at a board meeting doesn't really make that much sense anymore. You can do a lot over the internet. It works quite well. You can have meetings and then you can go right back to work, and nobody has to sit in traffic and nobody has to, figure out how to get there or back. So it's changed things.
Yes.
And I think, as you said, I think people are realizing, hey, maybe I don't need to live right in the heart of the city and pay a fortune and, be in the chaos of all of that. Maybe I can live on the outskirts and still do what I do.
The environment also benefits from that, of course. Why do I have to book a plane or to buy a plane ticket for a 30-minute meeting? Just to of course, it's important to socialize with people and to have that kind of personal interaction and the closeness. But certain things are just ridiculous,
You are right. When I moved to Carmel, the first couple of years, I would fly down for meetings, and it's not even an hour flight, so it's a pretty short jaunt. But either the plane would be late. A couple of times, back then they flew prop planes out of Monterey because it's a very small airport. Now they fly jets, but 15 years ago they were flying these stupid old prop planes, and half the time we'd have to get off the plane because the prop wouldn't get started, and the other half of the time I would go down to LA. I'd get off the plane, I'd get in the terminal, and I'd look at my phone, and the meeting was canceled. And I would just go, okay, this is not working. And they don't want a teleconference because they don't think it works. One time, Antoine Fuqua, I was working with him on a TV pilot. And he said, listen, I know you got this camera thing set up down here, but I think I really need you to come down. And I said, okay, yeah. I mean, if you need me to be there, that's no problem. I'll be there tomorrow. So I went down, and he played me a song from the band Tool, about 2 minutes of it. And he goes, well, I just wanted you to hear that. And I was like, wait, you couldn't have sent this to me on my email and I could have listened to it, or you could have told me what track it was. Yeah, I mean, I had to come down. So, I mean, it was just kind of like power trip things. And I just kind of went, this isn't really working. I mean, I'm either going to work from my studio and come down for important meetings, or I'm just going to stay up there and write my own stuff and do my own thing, because, this in-between thing is not working. Well, luckily for me, I started to work with John Lasseter right after that. Mm-hmm. And John is a completely different kind of a guy. He's an innovator, and he's a great filmmaker and a great storyteller and a great judge of music. So all of a sudden everything changed. And I did one movie with him, and then he basically kind of signed me up for two more. And one of them was Moana. So between Moana and Planes 2, I was working with John and with his people for a good, 4 years or so. And it kind of changed everything because I realized, first of all, I realized that it does work for me to be here and write and work because I turned out really good stuff. And, Moana was a really big hit. And we did most of it at my studio in Carmel. Even Lin Miranda was up here working with me. So it works. But the other thing was that I realized, you just have to work with the right people. I mean, if you're working with people at my stage in the business, if I'm working with people that I can't stand, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? I'm not starting out. I don't have to do it. When you're starting out, you have to do that stuff. But at this point in my life, I don't want to work with people I don't care for. So I've been really fortunate. I worked with John Lasseter on Moana, and great directors and great people. And then I worked with Clint, and that was me and him. And then I'm working with Chris Williams now, and his crew is great. And Netflix is wonderful. The people are wonderful there. So, it's find a new home, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it is. I have found a new home, and if that family's not coming over for dinner, then I'm not going to have anybody over for dinner. You know what I'm saying?
Or have Michael Bay over for.
The bottom line is, I mean, with Michael, is everybody knows about Michael Bay. So I mean, it's not like we're keeping secrets here. He's one of the most successful directors in Hollywood. And he's somebody who I wouldn't work with again. And I got to say, the guy that works with him, the composer, what? My hat's off to him, man. Good for you. I mean, if you can navigate that, I think that's great. And I thought Lauren did a really cool job with my theme to Bad Boys. I think he did a really good job with that.
You've got a lot to show for, and you've worked on a variety of pictures. Of course, Speed and Bad Boys, still one of my favorite action scores of the 90s. I think I keep saying that, but I really mean it. Last night I actually rewatched Money Train. Joseph Ruben, you've done 3 films with him. That was Money Train, Return to Paradise.
I love that guy. I'd love to do another picture with him.
Yeah.
I just don't know what he's doing, but my favorite was Return to Paradise. That was, I don't remember exactly how that film happened, but I remember going to New York to the Brill building where he was working and talking with him about doing Return to Paradise. And I don't remember if I asked him that I wanted to do it or that he asked me. I don't even remember, but I love that movie. And that was one of those scores where, I didn't have the luxury of 6 or 7 days with an orchestra at the end of the movie. I really had to kind of figure out how to do it on a very small budget. But I thought it turned out really nice, and I really like it. I'm really proud of that movie. It's a very, very, it's a cult kind of movie. A lot of people haven't seen it, but I thought it was really good.
Yes, absolutely. It's a good movie, and I actually need to rewatch this one. I haven't seen it in 2 or 3 years. So, and the score is also lovely. Good score, absolutely.
Thank you. I played it for my daughter. I showed her the movie, and she's 20 now, but I think I showed her when she was about 17 or something, and she really liked it. And when I watched it, and I went, I really like this movie a lot. I mean, I thought Vince Vaughn did a great job. I thought Joaquin Phoenix was great. I mean, it was. What happened to that movie is that Anne Heche, who's in it, came out right when the movie came out. Yeah. And at that time, people were it just kind of blew the movie because it was like, well, wait a minute, you're in a romantic relationship with Vince Vaughn, but you're not actually, but now you're coming out. The timing of it was just odd. And it really hurt the movie somehow because people didn't buy her as a lead at that time. Yes. It was just an awkward and strange thing. But having watched it, as I say, a couple of years ago, I thought it was really good. I thought the acting was really good. I think the cutting is really good. I think the flow of the movie. I thought the score sounded really cool and good and worked really well. Yeah, that's kind of a sleeper for me in my little career.
Mark, is there anything else you would like to add? Any closing thoughts before we wrap up about your career, about CBs?
Because it's Chris Williams, it's a pretty serious movie as far as on a scale. It's not light, fun entertainment. It's quite a big adventure. It could easily be a live action movie, the story wise, and the whole concept of it. In fact, it would make a fantastic live action film. So what we've tried to do with this movie is make it a live action movie that's animated, right? So not that the animation looks like live action at all, but just that the feel of it is more of a live action adventure, but the picture is animated. So the length, it's not an animated movie length, which would normally be about 80 minutes. It's much longer than that. It's got some real darkness to it, which most animated movies don't have. It's very emotional. It's very diverse in its characters. It's very mixed character-wise, which is kind of fun, and different. It has so many good things going for it. And its original story. So I think it's going to be something really good. I think people are going to love it. I think it's going to be a really cool film. I do believe in it. I really believe in Chris. This is my first Netflix project, and I've been really happy with them, and their music department has been really great.
Great.
So you never know when you're getting in bed with a new girlfriend. You don't really know what's going to happen, and this has been it's been a tough one, but not tough because people are rude or abusive. It's just been tough because it's a tough, hard movie. It's hard for everybody.
Mark, thank you very much for taking so much time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciate that, and it was great to chat again, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation as well.
I did. Thank you very much, Michael. It's good to talk to you, and check back in with me when Sea Beast gets nearly finished here.
Absolutely. And thanks again. Stay safe, healthy, and have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.